Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung, my friends, in this life, the greatest threats often do not come roaring like beasts from the dark. They come quietly. They wear the mask of familiarity. They hide behind smiles, false concern, and even love. The most dangerous people around you are not always obvious. They dwell in the hidden recesses of your everyday relationships, feeding on your energy, shaping your identity, and molding your fate. To awaken, to truly live, is to see them, not with hatred, but with clarity. Let us examine 6 archetypes of danger, 6 shadows that may surround you. Not so you may condemn, but so you may become conscious and free yourself. Of all the shadows that walk beside us, none are quite so silent, so insidious as the envious one. They do not come bearing weapons, nor do they openly attack. Instead, they quietly observe, smiling in your presence, applauding your victories with hollow hands, all while a storm of resentment brews behind their eyes. Their soul contracts in response to your expansion. Every step forward you take becomes a silent wound to them. Every bit of joy you express stirs unrest in the depths of their psyche. You may not recognize their envy at first, because it wears the mask of friendship, kinship, or even love. But over time, patterns emerge. When you speak of your dreams, they offer a hesitant smile. When you celebrate a win, their congratulations come late, or not at all. They rarely ask questions about your growth, but they always notice your missteps. They delight in your vulnerability, not out of concern, but because it reassures them that you're not ahead. Envy, you see, is not admiration gone astray. It is a wound that turns inward until it poisons the spirit and outward until it corrodes relationships. This person cannot rejoice in your evolution because your becoming reflects their stagnation. Your light casts a long shadow on what they have not yet dared to face in themselves. And so, they begin to retreat from you. But not always physically. Sometimes they remain in your life but subtly sabotage you, eroding your confidence with jokes that sting just a little too deeply, with advice that leads you away from your path, or with passive silence that speaks volumes in your moments of triumph. Their envy is rarely direct. It is slow, steady, almost invisible, until one day, you feel yourself dimming around them without knowing why. But understand this: their envy is not your burden to carry. It is not your responsibility to shrink yourself so that others feel less threatened. Their darkness is not your fault. It is their own unconscious refusal to confront the parts of themselves they have disowned. Carl Jung wrote that everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Yet sometimes, that irritation, when left unexamined, festers into quiet resentment. The envious one may be someone you love. It may even be someone who once cheered for you. But envy changes people, and the closer they are, the more dangerous their hidden resentment becomes. Not because they are evil, but because their unconscious has taken control. The unconscious does not ask permission to act, it simply directs. Do not hate them, but do not let their shadow drown your light. Compassion does not require proximity. Love does not mean tolerating poison. You may still wish them well, but from afar. For in order to walk your path fully, with purpose and authenticity, you must protect your energy, your spirit, your becoming. In the end, the envious one teaches you something profound. Not about them, but about yourself. That you no longer need to seek validation from those who cannot rejoice in your truth. That your light is not up for negotiation. That your soul deserves the kind of company that doesn't just endure your glow, but celebrates it. Let them go, if you must. Not with anger, but with clarity. Because when you stop dimming yourself for others, something incredible happens. You begin to see who was walking with you, and who was only walking beside you in the shadows. There is a kind of person whose presence is agreeable, even charming. They smile at the right moments, say the right words, and seem to reflect your values, your tastes, your ideals. You may feel an unusual connection with them, a strange sense of being understood, but this connection is not born of true resonance. It is constructed. It is not authenticity you are experiencing, but mimicry. The pretender is not necessarily malicious. In fact, many who wear this mask do so unconsciously. They have spent so long shifting themselves to fit into rooms, roles, and relationships that they no longer know who they truly are. They have built a personality around survival, not sincerity. At their core is a void, an identity unformed or perhaps long buried, and so they mirror those around them to maintain acceptance, security, and relevance. At first, their presence is intoxicating. They flatter you, agree with you, and seem aligned with your thinking. You begin to trust them, maybe even confide in them. But slowly, inconsistencies emerge. You notice how they change depending on who they're with. Their opinions, once echoed yours, shift easily when the crowd changes. They avoid conflict not out of wisdom, but out of fear. Fear of being revealed, fear of being disliked. Their friendships are built on superficial alignment, not depth. Their values are spoken, but not lived. What makes the pretender dangerous is not only their lack of authenticity, but how their performance manipulates your perception of reality. They make you believe you are more alike than you are. You may begin to make decisions based on the illusion of connection, not the truth. And when the mask slips, when they contradict themselves, when they disappear in your moments of need, or when they side with your critic rather than with you, you are left confused, disoriented. You begin to question your judgment, not realizing that what you were responding to was never real to begin with. The pretender often becomes what Jung called the persona, the mask we show to the world. But the tragedy is that they no longer distinguish between their mask and their true self. They are trapped in performance, unable to step off the stage, because they fear that without applause, they will cease to exist. Beneath the surface there is often deep insecurity, a childhood shaped by conditional love, or a past full of rejection. Their mimicry is their shield, but you must not confuse their fear with loyalty. The pretender will walk with you only as long as it serves their sense of belonging. When your truth becomes inconvenient, when your growth threatens to expose their hollowness, they will either withdraw or subtly undermine you. They will ghost you, betray you, or simply shift towards someone new who reflects a more desirable version of themselves. They are not anchored in truth, they are drifting between masks. In your journey toward wholeness, these are the people you must learn to see, not with cynicism, but with wisdom. Do not give the most sacred parts of yourself to someone who has never shown you their soul. Observe the pattern, not the performance. Trust what is consistent, not what is convenient. True connection can only happen when both people are rooted in themselves, not when one is busy pretending to be what the other desires. Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But the pretender avoids this task, fearing what they might find beneath the facade. Your responsibility is not to tear away their mask, but to guard your own truth. Let their instability remind you to stay grounded in your essence. Let their shifting awaken in you the commitment to remain authentic, even when it costs you approval. Because, in the end, it is better to walk alone in truth than to walk with 1,000 masks in silence. There is a figure who moves through your life not with open aggression, but with quiet insistence. They are often charming, intelligent, persuasive, even generous. But underneath the surface, their intentions are not rooted in love or respect. They seek not connection, but control. This is the Puppetmaster, the one who cannot allow others to exist freely, because your freedom threatens the illusion of power they work tirelessly to maintain. At first, the controller may appear deeply invested in your well-being. They offer advice, direction, and structure. They may even appear protective, like someone who just wants the best for you. But if you look closely, you will notice that what they offer always comes at a costing your autonomy. Your decisions begin to feel less like choices and more like obligations. You begin to filter your actions through the lens of their approval. You adjust your speech, your pace, your dreams, to maintain harmony with them. This is not love. This is possession dressed as care. What makes the Puppetmaster so dangerous is their ability to mask dominance as devotion. They do not raise their voice, but they manipulate with guilt. They rarely command directly, but they withdraw affection, approval, or attention when you deviate from their expectations. You are not openly threatened. You are quietly conditioned. Their approval becomes the currency of your self-worth. And slowly, without even realizing it, you begin to trade parts of yourself to keep that approval intact. The controller often comes from a place of deep unconscious fear. Fear of abandonment, fear of vulnerability, fear of losing relevance. Their need to direct others stems from their own unresolved chaos within. By organizing the external world, by managing your path, they distract themselves from their own inner disarray. They are not aware, many times, of how controlling they are, but their unconscious seeks safety through dominance. Jung warned us that what we do not make conscious will rule our lives, and we will call it fate. The controller believes they are helping you, guiding you, protecting you, but in truth, they are using you to regulate their own internal instability. They are not nurturing your potential. They are shaping you into a reflection of what makes them feel powerful. This dynamic often plays out in families, in romantic relationships, even in friendships and work environments. It is subtle. You begin to second-guess your instincts. You look to them before making a decision. You anticipate their disapproval before expressing your truth. And eventually you lose touch with your inner compass, your own authority. To break free from this dynamic is not to reject the person, but to reject the illusion that your life must be filtered through someone else's vision. You are not a puppet. You are not here to fulfill the expectations of those who fear your independence. Your path is yours to walk, not theirs to design. You may be told you are ungrateful, disloyal, or selfish for stepping away from their grip. But that is the language of the controller, the desperate attempt to keep you tethered. Do not mistake their anger for proof that you are wrong. Sometimes, resistance is the clearest sign that you are reclaiming yourself. And let us be clear, boundaries are not acts of cruelty, they are acts of clarity. You do not have to scream, you do not have to explain endlessly. You simply have to choose yourself again and again, until your inner truth is no longer up for negotiation. The Puppetmaster teaches you something vital, that control is not the same as care, that authority is not the same as love, and that freedom is not selfish. It is sacred. In Jungian terms, to individuate is to become whole, to become who you truly are. And that journey requires that you cut the strings placed upon you by those who cannot love you without owning you. Let their disapproval be a sign that you are no longer under their spell. Let your rising discomfort become your awakening. Because no soul was born to be a puppet, you were born to be free. There is a presence you may know well. Someone who is always struggling, always hurting, always in need. Their life is a series of endless misfortunes. And you, perhaps, have become their confident caretaker, their emotional crutch. They tell you their pain with such sincerity, such vulnerability, that your heart opens to them. At first you feel honored to be trusted. You want to help, to uplift, to ease their burden. But as time passes, something begins to shift within you. You begin to feel heavy after your conversations with them. Drained. Weary. You realize that the more you give, the more they need. The more you listen, the less they hear. Their problems never resolve. They only evolve into new forms of crisis. And slowly, a troubling truth begins to emerge. They do not want to heal. They want to remain the victim. Because victimhood has become their identity, their safety, their power. The eternal victim is not faking their pain. In fact, much of it may be deeply real, rooted in childhood trauma, unmet needs, unresolved grief. But rather than confront that pain and transform it, they cling to it. It becomes their excuse, their shield against responsibility. In the Jungian sense, they are entirely consumed by their complexes. Unconscious emotional knots that dominate their psyche. They do not seek wholeness, they seek attention, validation, and someone else to carry their suffering for them. They position themselves in such a way that you feel guilty for having joy, for feeling strong, for growing. When you succeed, they say, "Must be nice." When you express hope, they respond with despair. Their energy is like a vacuum. It consumes your light but offers nothing back. They are not trying to harm you directly. They are simply so caught in their own darkness that they have no space to honor your light. And yet, many of us feel bound to them. We believe that if we just say the right words, offer the right support, give a little more of ourselves, they will finally rise. But the truth is, you cannot want someone's healing more than they do. You cannot save someone who is committed to sinking. And the more you try, the more you betray yourself. This is the danger of the drainer. Not just that they exhaust your emotional resources, but that they erode your boundaries, your sense of self. What's more, the eternal victim often manipulates without knowing it. Their suffering gives them a kind of control. People walk on eggshells around them, excuse their behavior, lower their expectations. If you assert a boundary, you are accused of being insensitive. If you step back, they claim abandonment. Their pain becomes a weapon. But unlike the controller, the drainer does not seek to dominate with power. They dominate through helplessness. It is a subtler form of control, but no less damaging. Jung taught that every one of us must face the unconscious if we wish to be free. But the eternal victim refuses. They would rather stay in the known misery than risk the unknown possibility of change. That is why they resist advice. That is why they sabotage progress. That is why they push away those who challenge them to grow. If you love someone like this, you may feel immense guilt in letting go. But you must understand, compassion is not the same as self-sacrifice. Empathy does not require martyrdom. You can care without becoming consumed. You can wish someone healing without forfeiting your own. The presence of the drainer in your life is an invitation. Not to rescue them, but to rescue yourself. To stop believing that your love can fix what only self-awareness can change. To realize that boundaries are not betrayals. They are lifelines. You are not a savior. You are not an endless well of energy. You have a purpose, a path, a light that must be protected. And though it may hurt to step back, sometimes distance is the only space where truth can enter. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is saying, "This is where I end and you begin. I will not carry what is not mine." Let them find their own mirror. Let them meet their own shadow. Let them discover their own strength. Or not. But do not let their endless storm keep you from your own sky. Because you are not here to drone in someone else's sorrow. You are here to rise. There is a subtle figure who walks beside you, not with loud criticism or overt betrayal, but with a quiet and consistent erosion of your spirit. They rarely raise their voice. They do not attack you outright. Instead, they plant seeds of doubt, speak in half-truths, and disguise their indifference or resentment behind politeness. This is the masked shadow, the passive destroyer. They are not the villain in your story, not obviously. In fact, they may appear to be a supporter, a listener, even a friend. But the danger they pose lies in their silence, in their withholding, in what they never quite say out loud. They are the ones who tell you they're just being honest. When they subtly undermine your ideas, they cloak criticism in jokes, then accuse you of being too sensitive when you recoil. They never confront you directly, but their disapproval is palpable. You can feel it in their pauses, their glances, their offhand comments that seem to linger long after the conversation ends. They rarely celebrate your victories. Instead, they downplay them, compare them, or ignore them altogether. But when you fail, that's when they offer their most generous support. Because your downfall reassures them that you are not above them. What makes the passive destroyers so dangerous is that they operate through emotional ambiguity. They confuse you not with lies, but with subtle contradictions. You begin to doubt yourself, not because they said you were wrong, but because they never fully said you were right. You second-guess your instincts, not because they stopped you, but because they never truly supported you. Over time, their quiet resistance dulls your intuition. Their restraint becomes your hesitation. Their shadow starts to bleed into your light. Carl Jung wrote extensively about the shadow, the part of the sitch that contains everything we deny, reject, or repress. The passive destroyer is someone who is consumed by their shadow but unaware of it. They cannot face their own envy, fear, or inadequacy, so they project it outward in the most indirect ways. Their unspoken hostility leaks out through sarcasm, backhanded compliments, or sudden emotional distance. They don't set fires, but they let candles burn unattended. And when things fall apart, they are always just far enough removed to avoid blame. They thrive in environments where honesty is feared, in groups that prize harmony over truth, in relationships where loyalty is mistaken for silence. They don't confront, they withdraw. They don't disagree, they disengage. And so, you are left trying to interpret what is not being said. You become an emotional detective, looking for clues in their tone, their timing, their absences. It is not what they do that hurts the most. It is what they withhold. Their power lies in ambiguity, and ambiguity is where your energy dies. Because your spirit cannot thrive in spaces where you are constantly guessing how someone feels about you. Where you feel compelled to prove yourself again and again to someone who never explicitly asked for proof, but never made you feel seen either. The masked shadow forces you to confront one of the deepest truths of your own psyche, that clarity is love. That silence, in certain relationships, is not peace, it is punishment. That withholding is a form of manipulation. Not all destruction is loud. Some of it is done with polite smiles and long pauses. You do not need enemies who attack you openly nearly as much as you must protect yourself from those who erode you slowly. The ones who leave you wondering whether you're crazy for sensing something isn't right. You are not crazy. You are not imagining it. Your intuition is recognizing a pattern that your mind cannot yet name. And so, the answer is not confrontation. It is awareness. It is in reclaiming your clarity. You do not need their approval, their full explanation, or their final betrayal to walk away. You only need the realization that you are shrinking in their presence. That is enough. Jung taught us that the path to wholeness is through integration, not just of our light, but of our shadow. The passive destroyer is your mirror, not because you are like them, but because their behavior reveals where in your life you are tolerating confusion instead of seeking truth, where you are accepting quiet sabotage instead of demanding honest alignment. Let their mask fall, not by forcing them to remove it, but by refusing to keep pretending you don't see it. Because your soul was not designed to thrive in ambiguity. It was meant to stand in truth, even when that truth means walking away from those who would rather harm you in silence than love you out loud. Now, hear me well, this is not a call to hatred, but to awareness. These people are not demons. They are lost souls. Some may heal, others may not. Your task is not to fix them. Your task is to know who you are, and protect that becoming. You are not here to shrink to make others comfortable. You are not here to dull your light so others feel less threatened. Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes. Carl Jung awakened then. See clearly, act boldly, and walk forward in fear, but in truth.